Infinity Train is by far the most hyped about Cartoon Network show in years, and now we're finally starting to see it. Let's hop aboard the commentary car and review every painstaking second. Is this the kind of Cartoon Network show we've been waiting for? Or is it another disappointment to add to the wall? We've all been lining up to hitch a ride with this show for a very long time. It's been 3 long years and there's been loads of hype, but now here we are. Infinity Train has arrived at the station. This is a big show for Cartoon Network and kind of an important series for their future, at least in the short term. Cartoon Network has had a bad few years and has only backed that up with bland, uninteresting cartoons that take too long to get going anywhere. But Infinity Train is hailed as the antithesis to that sort of thing. If you believe the buzz, it'll be the next Adventure Time, a whirlwind hit that'll rocket Cartoon Network into relevancy and set them up nicely for years to come. I guess I'll have to be the judge of that. At San Diego Comic-Con over the weekend, Cartoon Network dropped a trailer for the show and, in true CN fashion, also released the first episode on the Cartoon Network app. So this video is reviewing both the trailer and episode 1. There are going to be spoilers for anyone who's waiting until the 5-night premiere event starts in 2 weeks. It's just impossible to avoid them. Anyway, on to the trailer. Will this show be just a ticket, or is it only going to take us for a ride? Travel puns today are in full force. The first 20 seconds definitely build up the intensity and seem to satiate the hype train that's been built up over this show. The premise is set up nicely and it begins to bring up some questions. Why is she running for the train in the middle of the winter? The second half of the trailer only brings forth more questions as we see some of the dimensions the train has to offer. The concept of the train cars as they're set up here offers quite a lot of potential for development and world building. We also get to see quite a bit of action as well, which is surprising for a Cartoon Network show, or most any show, at least in the US, in this day and age. Perhaps the hype was somewhat correct, and that this show is definitely different from the Cartoon Network shows we've seen recently. I don't feel that all of the hype was justified, but I think at least a solid 80% of it felt fulfilled here, and that is more satisfying than Cartoon Network has been in a long time. Now boarding for episode 1, and we start on something that's very unusual for a cartoon. A cold open. Usually we just get thrust in the theme song, but nope, Cartoon Network means business. The show itself starts fine enough, as our protagonist Tulip discusses with her friend about how she's going to game design camp for the weekend. As we approach her house though, things get deeper. We dive into some real exposition as they confront the fact that Tulip's parents are divorced. It's a tough spot for a kid to be in, but if you happen to be involved, it's not something you necessarily shy away from, especially at that age when you're becoming a teen and finding yourself. This level of exposition and deepness is already a break from other Cartoon Network shows running right now. Not to mention that it's being done so well, too. It doesn't feel rushed, it doesn't feel thin, it feels the way it's supposed to feel. Perhaps Tulip's interest in game design, as we see in this episode, is sort of an escape for her from the troubled home life she deals with. As she fixes her simplistic game up, we get to see her eyes light up about something that she's really passionate about, and even so early on, that feels special. The Windows XP she's apparently running is also something special. You really should have something newer. It's 2019, come on. The scene that follows afterward, when Tulip finds out her dad can't drive her to camp, is really meaningful and really important. You'd think a scheduling conflict would be no big deal, but when things are already falling apart around you, and when you know that you don't have what you used to fall back on, every little thing's important. Every little thing matters, and every time they let you down again, it feels like a further violation of your trust and your faith in them, or at least what you still have left of that. And so, let down just one too many times on one too many important things, Tulip runs away, in the dead of winter, in the middle of Wisconsin, looking for her own escape, a physical one. The sound design in this scene definitely sounds like Stranger Things, as some other reviewers have pointed out. I can see the letters coming in now. The Infinity Train arrives, and part of me can't believe the ease at which Tulip is just like, okay, let's hop this train. I mean, maybe this is just me as a viewer with extraneous knowledge, as it does say it's going to Oshkosh, but it feels just a bit too easy. But then again, what does Tulip know? She's 13, her parents seem pretty newly divorced. I guess she hasn't learned yet not to instinctively trust things. She still has a naivete about her. That naivete is on full display as we meet 1-1, who is also on this midnight train going anywhere. Robots, people. I think Tulip shares the same reaction as many of us would have on discovering this train. It's all fun and games until something goes wrong, and goes wrong it does. Quickly. It's not long before we get a peek into the horrors of this train, or perhaps the world that exists outside it. We are certainly not in Wisconsin anymore. I have to applaud Cartoon Network on actually getting pacing right for once. Most of CN's other shows right now feel very sloppy or rushed, or both. I didn't get that feeling here, and it makes actually watching the show all the better. The show's art style is pretty typical for modern fare, though they paid some extra attention to the backgrounds, which feels as if they were pan-on. It's not going to change the world of animation or set it on fire, but the show's story can do that. It's also noticeable that the design of Tulip herself has changed slightly between the pilot and the series. Honestly, I think that might be for the better. Her head feels more proportionally correct to me now than the pilot design. The characters were developed pretty well in the little time they had to do that. I feel contented with what we got to see of everybody and how everything was established. 1-1 is probably going to shape up to be a very interesting companion to Tulip. He seems to know the train, but nothing else. Are there any secrets hiding inside of him? And speaking of mysteries, what is with the hand? It's very clear that the glowing number will have some serious significance throughout the show. I don't know what it means exactly, but my guess right now is that 115 is the number of cars Tulip's going to have to go through before reaching the front of the train. Or at least what we'd be led to think is the front of the train. Does an infinity train have a front? Questions can also be raised about the possible insidiousness of the train itself. Does it just signal to its targets that it's going where they want to go and trap them inside? The train itself could prove an antagonist in this series, and that could be uncharted cartoon territory. This first episode was excellent. It gave us everything we needed to know, but left so much on the table that we're dying to find out more. Why does the train exist? How did it come into being? What else lies within its cars? How did 1-1 get onto the train? There's enough theorizing out there to populate a YouTube channel for weeks, so I'll just say this. Infinity Train is the best series that Cartoon Network has put out in years. Admittedly, that's a low bar, given the rest of the shows they have right now, but this show is actually on the level of star series on other networks, like Disney Channel's new Amphibia. My review of that is on the way, so subscribe so you don't miss it. This show lives up to the hype that's been building for it over the past few years, and while it doesn't exceed it, it's undeniable that this show has the potential to go down in the history books as one of Cartoon Network's best. This is their new Halo show. This is their new Adventure Time. This is the future I want to see from Cartoon Network, and this is the kind of show they should be making. It's ambitious, it's intriguing, and it blows any other show on the network right now out of the water. I can't wait for the 5-night premiere week, and honestly, I think you should get on Infinity Train now before it takes off. Cause this one is gonna be a ride. What are your thoughts on Infinity Train? Does it live up to your expectations? What do you think this show says about the future of Cartoon Network? Sound off in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss more from the world of TV every single week. I'm Benzie Johnson Jr., I'm enthusiastic about television, and I'll see you next time.